Hi, and welcome to That's My Purse Pod, the podcast all about King of the Hill. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy.
So I guess in the past few weeks or whatever, have you developed any new hobbies or gotten into anything new? That could be a good conversation for us to get into.
Kind of. I was out shopping with a friend. We were at a comic book store, and at the store, I'll just shout out the store, Dragon's Lair in Austin. They were playing this game called Warhammer 40K. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like
I've
miniatures.
heard of it. I know nothing about it.
So they had all these giant tables, and people were setting up their miniatures and stuff. And my friend's really into Warhammer, but he's never had anyone to play with. He's bought a whole bunch of figures, but he just hasn't had anyone to play with. So I started talking to these people playing. I was like, these figures look cool. Asking a few questions. My friend asked me which characters I thought looked cool. And then he bought me a starter set. These starter sets are not cheap. So now I'm not that I'm forced to play, but I'm more encouraged to play. So I've been building these miniatures. I don't know if you could see that.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the game. I've never played it, but I've seen it played, and I've seen it referenced in Reddit and stuff like that. So I know it's a thing. If you asked me to hey, tell me 5 interesting things about it, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, so all the little pieces, the characters come in little pieces, and you gotta glue them all together, and then you have to paint them. So currently I'm gluing all my figures together, but I don't know how I want to paint them. Let me ask your opinion, because I have 2 ideas going on. So I don't know if you can see it, but they look like little aliens.
Yeah.
My guys. So I'm thinking about doing I've seen 2 tutorials, and one guy has painted his to look like the aliens from the movie Alien. Where they call xenomorphs.
Yep.
And it has this cool trick to make the drool and the green slime.
Interesting.
So that's one way. Or the other way I was thinking was I was gonna go 80s neon. Bright neon oranges and greens and pinks, make it super 80s.
Past and present.
So I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like it's one of those things where it goes full circle, and you're both futuristic and past, because when you look at some of the sci-fi stuff from Blade Runner and stuff like that, it's all neon. So you're both in the past and the past and the future at the same time. So do it.
Okay, so you're voting for the neon.
Absolutely.
Okay. Also, before I ask you if you picked up any hobbies, I have this question about the band Journey. I've been on a real Journey kick this past week. Okay. And when I talk about Journey to some people, they're like, oh, Journey. Do you think the show Glee ruined Journey?
I mean, maybe. I honestly did not watch Glee, so I have no formal opinion. I do know that they covered Don't Stop Believing at one point, but I don't know. To me, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about Journey, just because I'm not a big, I don't dislike them. I just don't know much about them. But to me, they, as well as Queen, have the quintessential karaoke songs and Don't Stop Believing and Bohemian Rhapsody. So I feel like they're evergreen.
Yeah, I've been really into Journey. So I didn't know that the song Separate Ways by Journey was in Stranger Things. I don't remember hearing it. I think I remember hearing it, but I've been just listening to Journey on a playlist, and then that song came up. And then there's a Stranger Things version of that song. So I guess they use it. And I've just been on a Journey kick, but I know some people are Journey haters, so I was just trying to figure out. I mean, I wonder if it is because they're karaoke songs, and then you hear them not the best renditions all the time when you go out.
That very well could be it. I mean, I'm not a huge Journey fan, so I have no real dog in the hunt, as they say.
But that's kind of what my hobbies and my musical journey. Oh, journey. This week. What about you? Any new hobbies? Any new music you've been
Not
listening to?
not really. So one thing I have been doing is like just trying to do interesting stuff in my place, and I replaced a bunch of my lights with those Philip Hue bulbs,
Mm.
and I finally have it set up to where like in my living room where I play video games, I have it set up to where it syncs with the game. So like if I look up into the sky in the game, then all of a sudden my room gets brighter. And then like if the game is experiencing a sunset, then it matches. And then of course when it gets dark, the room automatically gets darker. So I have it all synced, and that's been pretty fun to do. Like the past week is just, or at least the past 2 days anyway, just trying to do that and testing it out.
Oh, that's cool. Wait, is that why your room is blue?
Right now, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I also can just like manually modify them and just click like, I could just go into the app and like they give you like a color. Supposedly, you can do like 10,000 colors or something like that. So they kind of give you a color wheel, and then you can just choose a random
10,000
color and it'll
colors?
change.
Goodness. You can be in a
Yeah,
different color every day
exactly.
for 10,000 days.
Hmm. Which I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but I'm guessing that's probably around 30 years.
Is black one of those colors?
No, because black is the absence of color.
I mean, but black is still a color, right? Like,
I
I mean, Hank thinks
technically
white is a color. Isn't that the like every
So
color
white
then?
is a com yeah, white is a combination of all colors, and black is the absence of color.
I feel like Hank would consider black a color.
Maybe. Have you ever seen like the Vanta black? There's another version that's even darker, but it was like the blackest. So it used to exist called Vanta black, and it was supposedly like the blackest black that existed. Like when you stared at it, it just looked like a void. And now supposedly there's something even darker than Vanta black, and it's just crazy to look at.
Wait, I don't know if these pictures are real.
They
Because this
probably
guy's
are.
holding a circle that's supposed to be Vanta Black, but then it just looks like someone cut a circle out of his picture.
Yeah, no, it does look weird. Like it just looks like you're staring into a void. That's how dark it is.
Wow, can you get your car in Vanta Black?
Um, maybe.
Could
I'm
people see it
sure.
at
Like,
night?
oh,
Would it
maybe
just be
not the
like
car
lights?
itself. Yeah, maybe just lights floating. Though apparently, like a few years ago, somebody at MIT invented Black 3.0, which is supposed to be blacker than Vanta Black. I guess that's like, is that a color? I don't know.
How do you go
Or have
blacker
they?
than black? Like, do you just add more
I
blacks to
think
it?
there's I have no idea. My thought is so like it's not reflecting any colors is what it boils down to. It's not reflecting any light. So they've made it out of some material to where it just absorbs all the light and reflects none of it back. So it just appears pure black.
You can buy a can of it for $30.
I wonder if that's actually it, or if it's just like somebody made something called Black 3.0. I don't know. So it just seems like I don't. Well, I guess it's been 3 years. Maybe somebody got the manufacturing rights. Oh yeah, that is. Looks like that is it. You can buy it for $30. Oh yeah, like when you look at the picture and they're like normal black, Vanta black, it almost looks like they have like this little stick with a circle on it, like a lollipop. And
Oh
the
wait, are you
Vanta
looking at
one
Vanta
almost
Black
looks
or
like a.
Black 3.0?
I'm sorry, Black 3.0. And the Black 3.0 like lollipop looks almost like a stick figure. It's just so black.
It
Like
looks
there's
fake.
no. I know.
Like, are they the same size? It looks bigger than the normal Black's ball.
I think they are the same size. It's just that because of the reflection on the other ball, you can kind of see that it's a sphere. But because the black 3.0 is not reflecting, it just looks like a flat circle.
Wait, what is white 2.0? I know now this is a spray painting podcast. Welcome to our color podcast, everyone.
There's probably one that exists out there.
So last week's episode, Hank was like, "You can paint the kitchen any shade of white you want." Wouldn't it would be hilarious if he said that today? It was like, "You can even paint it white 2.0."
Oh, I'm looking at it and it like hurts my eyes looking at it. It is so white.
It's
I feel like I feel like if you were in a room painted white 2.0, it would drive you crazy.
you think more than a room painted in like black 3.0?
Oh, that's a good question.
I also hear red is a weird color to be in too.
I guess because I feel like in movies and in fiction and stuff, whenever they put somebody into like a into a padded room or you get stuck in the nowhere or whatever, it's always just like a pitch white area. So it's almost like that's for some reason that's more unsettling than like a completely black area.
Dude, it'd be so expensive to paint your whole like room in white 2.0. For 34 ounces, it's $139.
Yeah, I would not do that. It'd be you'd be dropping five figures easily just to paint like a modest sized room.
Is that like a small flex? Like if Elon Musk's like, and this room is painted in white 2.0.
Probably. My guess is like the only people you use it for like very small arts and crafts projects. You don't use it to like paint a house or whatever. I mean, I guess you could if you had the money. Like, I don't think there's any laws preventing you from doing it, but at the same time, I don't think it would be pretty expensive.
This company's also made the pinkest pink in the world.
Okay, now I think they're just making stuff up. For anybody interesting, the site I'm looking at is culturehustleusa.com.
That's the same one I'm
And
looking at.
yeah, I see it, the pinkest pink. Um, okay.
I mean, it is a
I
powder
feel like,
though, so I don't know if that
you know, I
makes any
feel
difference.
like pink's a little different because, like, I don't know, like, whenever I think of pink, there's so many variants of pink that, like, I'm like, okay, so how can you tell that's the pinkest pink? But, like, the blackest black, I think you can easily tell, or the
They've also
whitest white.
they've also made the mirriest mirror chrome paints.
Okay, now they're just messing with us.
And, and the world's glowiest glow pigments.
Yeah, now they're just screwing with us.
Man, what would you?
You should like buy one of these or something, and when you make your next costume for a convention,
Yeah, what would I? What would I do with the
you just
black 3.0? What kind of costume would I?
you could just be like the Black 3.0 superhero or something. I don't know, Black 3.0 man or something. You're just your entire suit is made out of Black 3.0.
Oh man, who wears a black costume?
I don't know. But that would be funny because, like, imagine how trippy that would be if you were at a comic convention and just somebody walked up, like, head to toe in, like, one of those body socks or something, but it was
Yeah,
fancy
but
black.
oh man, that would be so weird.
You could be like Mr. Game and Watch or something from
Oh,
Smash Brothers. So I guess he was from another thing or something. He was like from an old Nintendo game.
true, true. Man, would you just look flat?
Ooh, now I'm gonna have to do it just to like answer that question for me.
Because like, if you went against the wall, would you just look flat, or even like a flat thing in light? Whoa, that would be so weird. Someone needs to. How do you do that though? Because then you would need to make a fabric. I don't know. This is like, wow. No, my mind is blown. I don't even know if I could do a podcast anymore. mind is blown right now.
Well, who would be able to figure this out in like a minute would be Hank Hill.
This is true. Hank's got the skills.
Exactly. If we asked Hank, like, hey, we want to paint our thing Fanta black, he'd be like, oh, well, you just have to do this. And
Or if he didn't know, he probably assembled a team. Like him, Bill, Dale, Boomhauer. When those four get together, like anything is possible.
that's true. That is very true. Well, sometimes anything's possible. When they work against each other, bad things tend to happen, though, as we will see in this episode. Though I guess you could say they weren't really working against each other, but not working with the. I don't know. You'll figure it out when we jump into it. This episode is the final Shinsult, episode 2, or excuse me, season 2, episode 18. So we're in the second season. We're really early still. And this one is a Cotton Hill heavy episode. So if you like Cotton, you'll probably like this episode. If you don't like Cotton, you'll probably still like this episode because it's a great episode. So it starts at Tom Landry Middle School. Peggy is covering for a teacher who has the hantavirus, and um, she is covering. I guess it looks like either a Texas history, or I guess it wouldn't be Texas history, but a U.S. history or Spanish history class. Where they are playing out a part of Mexican history, 1847, the Battle of Cerro Gordo, which was in California, not in Texas. I think us growing up in Texas, anytime we hear Santa Anna, I think we immediately think, oh yeah, Texas battle in Alamo. But like, no, he was a big general. He fought in other wars too for Mexico. So true story. He was when he was in the Battle of Cerro Gordo, he ate some chicken and he took off his fake leg so that he can enjoy chicken. And then the Illinois Volunteer Infantry shows up and they run away. And the Illinois Volunteer absconds his leg and says, "Oh, well, we've got the leg, and now the leg has been on display by an Illinois museum all this whole time for well over a century." But they've decided they're going to return it to Mexico, and Arlen is going to be the last stop, or I guess you could say the last leg of the journey. In the alley, the guys are drinking, and Bill's telling some story, and he's like, "But then that was 1976. But then in 1977, I did wear shoes," which now makes me want to know what that. Not even what the whole conversation was, but what triggered that conversation in the first place. All of a sudden, you see a car moving fast, and Hank's like, "Oh, look at that driver! Doesn't he even know that people drink beer in this alley?" And then they're like, "Hey, that kind of looks like your dad's Cadillac." Oh no, he's coming! And then they like dive, but Bill's kind of he's going into the cooler, so he's like, "Oh, I can't react" or something. But fortunately for him, Cotton stops like right in front of the cooler, like the bumper taps the cooler lid down, and he comes out and he grabs a beer out of Bill's hands, like, "Oh, thank you. Don't mind if I do." And Hank's like, I guess Hank wasn't expecting it. It's like, "Oh, what are you doing here, Dad?" And he's like, "Oh, uh, Dee Dee and I had a fight." And then it kind of goes back. Cotton is sitting on a recliner watching TV, and he's like, "I'm cold, woman. Knit me a blanket." And she's like, "Oh, I'm late for work." And then he thinks she's making a joke. He's like, "Oh, that's funny, my woman working." And she's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go." And you're just gonna have to deal with socks. And then it kind of flashes back to the present day, and he's like, "Yeah, so I threw her out. I put her on the street." And Dale praises him for his, I guess, for his conviction. And so Hank initially thinks, okay, he's just going to hang out here for a few days, wait for this to blow over, then go back. But then Cotton's like, "Nope, it's good. It's gone for good. I'm here to get my license." Apparently, this DMV in Arlen has not changed the eye chart since World War II. But Hank's concerned because he just thinks his dad's no longer in a state where he should be driving. Like he can't see well, reaction time is bad, all that stuff. Next, we see breakfast, and Cotton is enjoying breakfast with everybody, and he's talking about how hey, I'm gonna get an RV, and Bobby and I are gonna visit 50 states in 50 days. And Luann makes I don't know if you've ever seen like Darwin Awards or whatever, but apparently this was a popular one where like they thought cruise control was autopilot on an RV, and they let it on, and all of a sudden went to the back, and then of course the RV drives off the road. So Luann's like, with an RV you could put it on cruise control, and then it will drive itself. Which, honestly, that's something you'd expect to hear from Luann. But Hank's still upset because he just doesn't think Cotton should be driving. Cotton's upset to hear this, and he breaks the plate because that's what he does. And Cotton's like, "Oh, Dale thinks I should be fine," well, he calls him Gribble. I don't think he ever calls anybody by their proper name except for Hank and Bobby, I guess. It's like, "Oh, Dale's kissing up to you," and Cotton's like, "Well, you should be kissing up to me too." And Peggy's trying to fuse this and asks, Hank if he'll chaperone Bobby's field trip. And Cotton's like, "Oh, where are you going, to Vegas?" And Bobby's like, "Nah, we're going to the museum to see the Santa Ana exhibit." And Cotton's like, "Yeah, I hear we got his walking leg." And Peggy's like, "Well, not anymore. It's going over to America, sending it to back to Mexico." And this gets Cotton super angry, and he looks for a plate to break, but everybody takes it away. And he's like, "Your daddy's generation is ruining everything. They're giving away everything we fought for. Santa and his leg, the Panama Canal," and he just storms out. In a way, I find Cotton kind of disturbing just because of how like misogynistic and hateful he is. But at the same time, he's also just kind of entertaining because he's just, I don't know. He's so bad that it's fun to watch.
It's true, and I love how Luann just when she comes in there and she kind of puts her 2 cents in. It's like you can even go back and watch TV. I'm just like, oh man, poor
Yeah.
Hank and Peggy. Peggy's. I don't know if she's saying like, but she does put up with a lot of Cotton.
Oh, Peggy hates Cotton. Like it's clear throughout the whole series that Peggy hates Cotton and Cotton hates Peggy. There's a handful of episodes where they get along, but even then it's like shaky at best. I mean, that's honestly how I'd expect Cotton to react to if he heard like, "Oh, we're giving it," like he's always talking about war and being a war hero and stuff. So I could see him saying like, "Oh, you gave back our war trophy," and thinking that's the wrong thing to do. He's probably also one of those old timers who's like, "America's the greatest country on the planet, and we don't have to relent to anybody, or we don't have to give back to anybody." But yeah, I mean, Cotton, and yeah, he's clearly not capable. I mean, it's still, he doesn't have shins. Like I don't think he can even see over the wheel. Yet somehow he's still driving, and then now he's getting so old that he can't really see anymore. But yeah, Hank's right to be upset, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. It's just Cotton. That's just Cotton for you. What would you do if Cotton tried to get a car?
And Cotton's my grandfather or my father.
Yeah, if Cotton was your father and he was like trying to get a car, but you were trying to stop him from doing it, like how would you handle it?
Oh man, I feel like I would just take the keys away. I I don't know. I feel like I'd be more stern than Hank is. I think we talked about this a few times because we've had a few Cotton episodes, but where Hank is just wanting Cotton's approval so badly that he kind of
Mm-hmm.
just overlooks a lot of things when he should just really be like super stern. Because you see the way he acts with Bobby. Like he doesn't really let Bobby get away with anything. But in the same way, Cotton kind of does similar things. I mean, they're more outrageous than what Bobby would do, but Hank lets Cotton slide with a whole bunch of things that I feel like he would normally put his foot down. He wouldn't let that go down in Strickland Propane like that
Yeah,
nonsense.
I think it's a few things. So I think on one hand, definitely on one hand, he wants his dad's approval on some level. And so that's why he doesn't put up too much of a fight with him. Like you can tell now he's actually annoyed with him. Whereas in that very first episode where we see Cotton, he's like making excuses for him and whatnot. Now you can tell he's annoyed with him, but he's still not firm with him. But then there's also room for the argument that Cotton's just way too ornery that Hank probably can't reason with him at all anyway. And he probably also knows that his dad's a loose cannon, so he has to be very careful with what words he uses around him. So that's kind of my head canon.
I get that. Cotton is a loose cannon at the end of the day.
Yes, he is. And they even go to the DMV, and Hank and Bobby take him there too. And there's a line, and Hank's trying to use that excuse to like get out. It's like, oh, there's a line. We shouldn't be here. It's going to take forever. And and then Cotton's like, I gutted a man who whined less than you did. And then Hank's like, okay, well, why don't you guys get started and get the paperwork, and I'll check out the line. And when they go and walk to get the paperwork, Hank goes up to the employee and tells them, to change the eye chart. And so they do while Hank, he's not paying attention, while Cotton's not paying attention. And then Cotton tries to cheat because he's memorized the eye chart, but the DMV person is like, oh, wow, I've never seen anybody get it all wrong before. You failed. And then Cotton's upset. And then Hank pretends to be upset too. So he's just like, this is an outrage. We are very dissatisfied customers. And they just leave. In the alley, Hank is explaining to the guys and explaining what he did and how he got them to change the eye chart. And Dale's like, "Oh, that was a good plan, but you should have silenced the clerk." uh, then Hank's just starting to think like maybe my dad's just I'm gonna have to start calling the shots. He's getting to the end now, and I don't think he can make the great decisions. And Bill's like, yeah, I mean, even with my dad, he can't even load his own hunting rifle. I have to put it in his hand and practically squeeze the trigger. Cotton comes out. He's just still angry about the DMV changing the eye chart, and Dale is telling Cotton like loopholes that he can use to still get a license. Like, hey, put a sail in your car, and now you can call it a boat. And Cotton's like, that's a great idea. And Hank's like, no, that's a dumb idea. And then Dale's like, well, sorry, not all of us can be geniuses like you and switch out the eye chart. Now Cotton's angry, and he decides, I Cotton's just furious. Let's put it that way. Cotton is furious at Hank, and Hank's just like, I'm trying to do what's best for you. And and Cotton's like, if you know what's best for you, you would have drowned yourself with the baby, like when you were a baby. And Cotton goes back into his car and like drives, hits a hedge, and drives like a house over. And he's like, I'm staying with the Gribbles. So yeah, so breakfast comes up, and Nancy's like, "Oh, how did you sleep, Cotton?" And Cotton's like, "Good." And Joseph's like, "See, and you wanted to get rid of Joseph's old crib." So Dale's just ridiculous. Dale also made a counterfeit driver's license that is good until the year 3000, and Cotton only pays him $1 for it. Which, like, come on, if you're going to make it fake, make it look believable. Something that's good for a year 3000, nobody will fall for that.
Also, the back of that driver's license. I mean, we find out what it is later, but like when he's handing it to Gon, it doesn't even look like. Oh man, that counterfeit.
I like when Joseph comes in next and he's like, "Hey, Dad, can you sign my permission slip for the field trip?" And Dale, in his conspiracy theory way, is like, I don't put my name on anything from a government institution." And then all of a sudden, Hank comes over in the background. You can hear the '80s rock music that's always playing whenever John Redcorn's around. And Nancy's like, "Oh, Joseph, our ride's here for school." Hank's like, "Come on, Dad, let's talk this over. I bought you a whole box of megalo plates that you can break." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna stay here and break Gribble's plates." And he breaks one, and it's like, "Thank you, Colonel." Dale is definitely sucking up to Cotton. I don't even know why. Like, I don't think he's getting anything out of it. Maybe he's just being contrarian and trying to upset Hank. I don't know. I don't know what Dale's
I always thought
motivation is
didn't
here.
Dale loves Cotton. Like he wishes he was Cotton's son. I thought now I can't remember who Dale's parents. Did we ever meet Dale's parents?
We never meet his mom, but we do meet his dad.
Yeah, I feel like Cotton is the dad he wish he had, in a sense. Like he loves the stories. He loves. I don't think he's even humoring Cotton. I think he like really gives into all of that.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I just find it funny how he is going out of his way to suck up to Cotton. Or maybe he just likes him as a character. Like maybe he's just like, oh, Cotton's entertaining, so I'm gonna just, put up with it. So Cotton decides to go out driving with his new fake driver's license, and next thing we see, he's crashed his car into one of those coin like meters for parking, one of the parking meters, and he has like the quarters are just falling all over his car, the hood of his car, and the cops coming up, and Cotton refers to her as a meter maid, and he's asked to get out of the car, and he Cotton does what Cotton does, and slaps her on the butt, and next thing he knows, he's in handcuffs and in the back of the police car, and Hank's been called over, and Hank's like, oh, I know, I'm sorry, I know the driver's license is expired. It's like, expired? This driver's license isn't even real. It's made on the back of a cereal box. And the cop thinks, Cotton is just, he's going down senile, the senility. He's becoming senile in his old age, and the cop is deciding to give Cotton a break for that. But Hank's like, oh, he's not senile. He's just larger than life. He's very energetic. The cop releases Cotton into Hank's custody, and they move forward. Hank's driving Cotton home, and Hank's trying to get Cotton to calm down, but he's still upset. And when he pulls over to the Gribble's house, he's like, look, just go inside, get your stuff. We'll come back into the house and, we'll talk. And Hank's like, all right, cool. Hank's still sitting out in the truck, and sometimes pass because we see it go from like daytime to evening. And Hank's still sitting there waiting. All of a sudden, the window opens, and Gribble and Cotton are there, and they proceed to moon Hank. And Hank gets angry and drives to his house. That cop was super lenient, I must say.
Do you think? I feel like she thought Cotton had dementia or something.
That's just what it is. I think maybe that's why she was so forgiving, was because she did think he had dementia. And, like, he wasn't like, oh, he wasn't trying to be a bad person. He just lost his. He doesn't know where he is, and he's mentally declining, and that's why the fact that he had a fake driver's license that was written on the back of a cereal box like made her think, oh yeah, he definitely is senile. Like if he thought that would work.
And then Cotton thinks, like, I don't know. There's so many. Sometimes Cotton episodes make me sad. Where like Cotton's like, this is gonna work for sure. Like he's held a real driver's license before.
Yeah, there are parts of when I do think he's like, I don't know if senile or dementia is the term for it, but there are definitely times where I think he's not right in the head. Some of it I think could just be his personality, like how he spanks women and breaks, but also like I feel like maybe he just has a lot of unresolved issues from his childhood, from the military, and who knows what else. And he's never dealt with it. And he's taken it out on everybody around him.
Well, I mean, he's definitely like a product of his like. He grew up in a certain era, and I don't think he's ever, because he's never really changed out of that. I don't. Some kind of confuses me. I know we're gonna. Oh man, now I can't remember his wife's name.
Dee Dee.
Dee Dee. I know we're gonna talk about Dee Dee later. I know she shows up again, but or yeah. So I don't know. Cotton's so weird, but he's definitely stuck in an era of that the world's not in anymore.
He definitely is, and he needs to move forward. But yeah, I think maybe his mind, maybe not like to the point of senile dementia or whatever, but I do think his mind is in decline. Uh, Next, we see Hank has gone to the mall because he's looking for Dee Dee. She's one of those like makeup ladies who works at the perfume counter or whatever. Hank wants Dee Dee to patch it up, but she's like, "Oh, there's no patching this up. Like the romance is gone." And she kind of reminisces as to when they first met, and they met at the VA hospital. And Cotton's in the bed, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm getting my shins drained." It's like, "I don't even take anesthesia. Did they give Lincoln anesthesia when they blew his head off?" Which is definitely something Cotton would say. A candy striper comes in, and the candy striper is Dee Dee. And she thinks Cotton looks like a little baby, and it's like, oh, so cute and whatnot. And then she like knocks over a jar of like tongue depressors, and as she goes to pick it up, she bends over and like the glass jar magnifies her butt, and that makes Cotton like fall in love with her and all that. Now she's like, but all the romance is gone. And Cotton said, my bottom is too small. Do you think my bottom is too small? Hank's like, oh no, it's fine, because he gets uncomfortable with that. Peggy comes out. She's like, hey, did you know Isotoner makes the sundress? And then she kind of looks at Hank. It's like, Dee Dee won't take him back, will she? And Hank's like, nope.
Dee Dee was a candy striper, but she looks the same. Like, are we just like say that like she's always looked that way, or is she just like a really old candy striper?
Maybe, I guess. I think so. I don't know if they ever say her age, but I think it's only implied that they've been together. If we assume that like every season is a year, for example, Dee Dee is first introduced in the first season, so maybe they've only been together for 2 or 3 years. But yeah, maybe she was like a older candy striper. I don't know if there's an actual age limit on candy stripers, though. I mean, I've it's not like it's something I research all the time, so I have no idea. I'm guessing there isn't a limit.
And is that still a thing? I've been, I don't know. I don't frequent the hospital, but the few times I have been, I've never seen one.
I don't know if like maybe the uniform is still a thing or anything, but there are people who still like volunteer at hospitals and help out with stuff. Maybe they retired the uniform, but I think like the idea of people going into the hospital and helping out is still a thing. So we go to the Gribbles basement, and Hank's there, and Cotton and Dale are there, of course. And Cotton offers Hank a cigar, and Hank's like, "Oh no!" It's like, "Well, too bad they don't have any." And Dale laughs at the joke, and I guess Hank's like thinking, "Okay, I just need to keep an eye on my dad." So he is like, "Hey, Cotton, will you come and join me to be a chaperone at the museum?" And Dale's like, "Oh no, he can't do that. He's taking me to go bumper bowling." Hank's like, "Shut up, Dale," and kind of coerces Cotton to go, and Cotton agrees, and then of course Dale agrees too. We go to the museum, and I guess Cotton's telling war stories to the kids because we see Connie's like, "Is it true you killed a German officer?" And then Bobby's like, "Oh, he was a Nazi, Connie." And then he's like, "That's right. I took his head off with a piece of dental floss. That's why you should always carry dental floss." They go to the part of the museum where the exhibit of the fake leg is present. Cotton is just super angry that they're giving it back, and the curator's talking about like, yeah, we're returning the leg, and we're also giving them the value of the leg, which I guess is what $1,300, something to that effect. And then a letter of apology from the president. And Cotton's like, that draft dodger, and he's just so mad. And he's like, they ain't giving my shins back. I lost my shins in the war. And Hank just had enough, and he's like, Cotton, be quiet. We get back to the bus. All of a sudden, the curator runs in. He's like, I know someone here stole the leg. Where's the leg? And then Hank's upset. He's like, all right, kids, I'm going to close my eyes. And when I open them, I better see the leg out. And so he closes his eyes and he like looks out the bus so that he can, I guess, let the kids come clean. But then he notices that the person who actually does have a leg is Cotton. Cotton and Dale stole it. Which seems like something they would do. They get back to Gribble's house, and Hank's like, where is the leg? And Cotton's like, oh, I thought you told me to be quiet. And Cotton is wanting to use the leg as a bargaining chip. Cotton's like, if the Mexicans want their legs back, the diplomats there are going to have to make a deal with government here and get me my driver's license. And Hank's just like, dude, that's not going to work. The police are going to come for you. And Cotton is like, well, you heard my demands. Now go tell your people. And Hank just leaves. And they apparently have put the leg in kind of a shrine in like the I guess like the coat closet, which is kind of funny. Hank is now finally starting to accept that maybe Cotton is senile. He's not. He's crazy, but not like the fun crazy, but like the actual crazy. And Peggy agrees and is like, I told you that. I've been telling you that for years. And then all of a sudden Luann runs in. It's like, I heard in the news that they stole Santa Claus's leg. Oh gosh, I kind of like where Cotton's headspace is. The fact that they were able to, I mean, I guess it's a small town museum. Maybe they don't have all the proper resources, and it is like the 90s, so they probably don't have the same laser technology or quality security or whatever. But how did they manage to steal? The leg was under glass. If you try to like move glass in a museum, an alarm will go off. I get it; it has to happen so that the show can happen, but still, it just makes no sense to me.
I I don't know. I always figure it's that thing where it's like dumb people just stumble into dumb things. You know, like if we were thinking about how to steal something, we would overthink it, and then like
Hmm.
some people just do it, and then everything goes their way.
Yeah, they exit the building with it, all that. It's like, man, how did they pull it off? Uh, we get back to the Gribbles' house though, and Dale and Cotton are having drinks, and Dale's kind of essentially saying, ride or die with you, Cotton. I'm with you 100%. All of a sudden, the police show up, and like in a split second, Dale gives up Cotton. He goes to the coat closet to get the leg and give it to the cops, but the leg's not there, and he's freaking out, and he's Cotton now gets all crazy and he's talking about like, oh, they got my shins over at the Emperor's Palace in Japan. And, I need that leg. That's how I'm gonna bargain and get my driver's license. And he's like trying to pick a fight with the cops. And needless to say, he's arrested. We see him at the VA hospital now. And they're like, oh, we couldn't even finish the mental assessment because he took the doctor's stethoscope as a war trophy. But the doctor is like, my professional opinion is he can't take care of himself and he either needs to stay here or he's going to have to be under 24-hour supervision by you. Peggy's happy to hear that because she's like, okay, yeah, he's going to be stuck here. And Hank is kind of in that weird space where he doesn't want to leave his dad there, but he also knows that he can't live his life watching over him forever. Like, it's not good for him. It's not good for Bobby. It's not good for Peggy or Luann or anybody. So Hank is trying to like, make it sound good. So he goes in and he's like, oh, look at all these board games here. You got checkers and shoots and ladders. If I didn't have to work every day, I'd come here. It's like really trying to play it up. But then Hank asks for the leg, and Cotton's like, "Okay, I'll tell you where the leg is, but you have to promise to get me out of here." And then Hank's like, yeah, I'll look into it." And so he says where the leg is, and the Hank bounces, and Cotton's like, "Please don't forget me." Driving back, Peggy's like, "Oh, I think that place is fine," but Hank's like, "Oh, it's terrible, but I can't take care of him. It's not good for the family and stuff." And it's like, "Hey, Consumer Reports gave that VA hospital a B minus," and he's like, "Well, I guess it's not failing." uh, so, um, yeah, I don't know. I feel for Khan, but at the same time, I don't know what I would do in that situation. Let's put it that way.
Oh man,
Like, if it were my dad,
I
like,
don't know. I try not to think of this kind of stuff, but I
yeah,
don't know. I guess personally, I've already made a decision. Like, I just think I'm gonna have to stick it out. I don't feel like I could put my parents in a home, but I mean, it's tough.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not dealing with Cotton. Cotton's a handful. Even when we have him out and about, he's a lot going on.
Hmm. Hmm. He has a lot to deal with, and even the doctor thinks he's crazy, or I don't know if crazy is the term I want to use, but not in a state of mind where he could take care of himself. And I think legally, since he was now, granted, I'm not a lawyer or anything, and also laws have probably changed since the TV show, but there was a point in time where like, and I think it's still a case, like if you are determined, if you go crazy, for lack of a better term, if you threaten to kill yourself or threaten to kill somebody else or something, um, and they think it's because of a mental health issue. I know, like in Texas, and maybe it's that way in every state, they will take you to a mental hospital and have you, like, you're under a legal 72-hour hold. And basically, they observe you and see if you're actually a threat to anybody, or if you're not. None. I guess if you're not a threat, they release you, and if you are, then they keep you longer. I don't know exactly what happens if you wind up becoming a ward of the state, or if you have to be released into somebody's custody under supervision or taken to another facility. But it sounds like Cotton was kind of in that situation, and they determined like, oh yeah, he's not in a state where he can take care of himself, so he either has to stay here, or if he leaves here, he has to leave in somebody's custody. Like somebody has to be taking care of him.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I do watch the show called Chicago Med. I'm very obsessed with it, and they do like psychiatric holds all the time on the show. So it's something
Yeah,
that exists. I don't, though. I don't think Khan's crazy, or like I think
I
he's just. I don't know. It's tough, like because he knows he's when he does something wrong. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I was going to get, because like a lot of times when they think, I wouldn't say crazy. Like I don't like using the term, but I guess in a mental state where you're not able to take care of yourself,
Or
and I'm not by no means an expert, but Cotton doesn't seem to come across that way because he does seem to be aware of what he's doing. He's just very, very ornery, is what it comes down to. Like, he refuses to accept that he can't drive anymore, and he's going to do whatever he can to get a driver's license. But the fact that he's able to plan and scheme and stuff, I think shows that he's not really like he knows what he's doing.
yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's a thing of like Khan's afraid of getting old, or I, now that I think about all Khan's things, I wonder if it's like he doesn't want to be a burden to anyone, so he's trying to be like overdoing everything. He wants to be super independent. He wants everyone to follow his lead because he doesn't want to feel like people are gonna have to take care of him, or like people have to nurse him.
I mean, that's fair. That might be it. I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure, but that could very well be it.
I mean, we're probably overanalyzing something, but I mean that's why we're here.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because it's like, did the creators even think this hard about it?
Probably not, but I don't think they thought that someone would be doing like a podcast about 50 of their favorite episodes of the show.
Yeah, fair point.
Well, podcasts weren't even a thing back then.
Well, no, they weren't. So we go back to the VA hospital. Hank isn't sure how to break the news to Cotton, and he's looking in and he sees Cotton is really sad, and he walks up and Cotton is looking at him, and Cotton's kind of hopeful because like, oh, Hank's come to get me, but he looks at Hank and Hank looks not happy, so he's like, oh, this Cotton's like, this is probably bad news. Uh, Hank says that he can't live with him, like he just can't. That's not an option. There's no way Hank's going to be able to take care of him. So his option is either to stay in the VA or to patch things up with Dee Dee, and he brings Dee Dee in. And it's funny because like Dee Dee didn't come to make up or anything. She's just like, oh, Hank told me I need to come here to sign some papers to get the Cadillac car. And then Hank has them play Dee Dee and Cotton's song, the song that was playing when they first met, and then all of a sudden they kind of romance each other again, and Dee Dee's like, "Oh, you look like a little baby," and then of course Hank knocks over another jar, and Dee Dee picks up the stuff, and then Hank like positions the jar to where it magnifies Dee Dee's butt, and Hank Cotton's like, "Oh, your butt's so big, I love it." It's like, "Oh, I love you. Can we go home?" So they wind up going back home. So all's well for Cotton now. We go back and we see the ceremony where they're trying to return the leg to Mexico, and the I guess American delegation gives the leg to a Mexican delegation. The Mexican delegation walks it back, but then the leg breaks, and at first Hank's like, "Oh, I guess it's the thought that counts," but then Joseph realizes, "Hey, that's not the real leg. That's the leg we used for our play." We cut to a Mexican DMV, and the Mexican DMV worker gives Cotton a driver's license. In exchange, he gives them Santa Anna's leg. So Cotton's plan wound up working, and I mean, I guess in the end, I mean, he did technically extort them, but in the end, Mexico did get their leg. So, but obviously, that's just a TV show. At the end, there's like a little talk about how the leg still is in Illinois, and we need please contact your congressman to get it back to Texas or get it back to Mexico. And I I actually have not followed up. I'm curious if that ever got back. According to this, it looks like it did go back. Oh no, it's still in the museum as of 2016, and as of 2021, it was still in the museum. So Mexico does not have Santa Anna's leg
Why is it in Illinois?
because an Illinois volunteer is who stole it. So
Oh. I feel like we should bring it back to Texas.
yeah, well, it was never in Texas. It was in California originally because remember the Santa
Oh
Anna was
yeah.
and I don't know my history that well, but he was a major general for Mexico. So even though he lost the Battle of Texas, he was still a general for Mexico. And when America wanted to take over pretty much everything else that was Mexico, Colorado, California, uh, so on and so forth, they essentially went to war with Mexico. And I think this is where that kind of comes in.
I mean, but when you think of Santa Ana, don't you think of
Yeah.
Texas?
Well, yeah, and I think it's because we grew up in Texas, and I think I said like at the top of the episode or when we started talking about the actual King of the Hill episode, because I know the context when I ever learned about Santa Anna growing up in school was always in the context of the Texas Revolution. So yeah, whenever you hear Santa Anna, or at least I hear Santa Anna, when you hear Santa Anna, we just immediately assume, oh yeah, he fought against Texas in the Texas War, and I guess when he lost, they just fired him or something. I don't know, but in real life, he continued to be a general.
Interesting. That is an interesting leg, though. I do recommend you guys Google it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing that they stole and we still have. And of course, it was like the 1800s, so it's not like they have the weird titanium alloy legs that they have nowadays or whatever. It was like a kind of wooden puppet leg, I guess. That's like the best way I know how to describe it. It looks like it wouldn't be out of place on like a wooden mannequin. But also, I don't know if they actually said if they mentioned it or not. But like in real life, like it wasn't like they came and they stole his leg and whatnot. I think he when the army was coming up, he just split but he didn't. He for whatever reason did not grab his leg in the process and just kind of left it at the camp when they all bailed. And the Illinois Army found it. And it's like, oh, this is ours now.
That is that's so interesting. Huh.
Yeah, I guess war trophy, if you will. But yeah, I mean, I guess I like how it ended, sort of. I kind of wish Dee Dee didn't get back with Cotton. Like, not that Dee Dee's a great person. Like the show. I mean, the show kind of paints her as kind of being very flat, unintelligent, maybe a little trashy or whatever. But at the same time, she does not deserve the abuse she gets from Cotton. So I'm like, I would have been happy if she never got to if she didn't have to deal with Cotton ever again.
Mm. I mean, well, we all know what the future holds in store for them, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I think they had fun moments. Probably not necessarily a great couple, but they definitely had fun times.
I think I can agree with that. I think I can agree with their relationship somehow works. It's still kind of weird to me, and I think she deserves something better. But like, she just, she definitely doesn't serve to be in an abusive relationship. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is true. No one does. So it's just I don't know. I wish Cotton would change.
Well, it also shows that he's not doesn't have dementia because clearly he planned everything out. Like he took the fake leg, he hid it. He knew that Hank would not he knew that Hank would not negotiate his way back with the leg. So, he gave them the fake leg and hoped that that would get him out of the thing, and then he can use the real leg. Like, I feel like that was always his end game. His end game was always going to be that he would use the leg to negotiate his driver's license.
Interesting. I never thought about that. I just felt like it was something he thought about at the end of the like after he got the leg.
Yeah, because remember when he first gets to the VA hospital, he tells them where the leg is, and Hank presumably goes home and tells the police where it is because he's like, oh, it's in Gribble's golf bag, and it's got a 1 written on it and stuff, and so Hank at that point had turned it into the police, and then he goes back and then he gives Cotton that ultimatum of he gives Cotton the ultimatum of you can either stay here in the hospital or you can go home with Dee Dee. And we know which one he winds up choosing. But my guess is that he probably thought he was always going to somehow get out of that hospital. And then once he gets out of it, he'll grab the real leg and complete his mission, which is why he drove all the way. Well, Dee Dee presumably drove him all the way down to Mexico to get him a driver's license.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with Cotton episodes because I like them because they're entertaining, but at the same time, he's just such a bad person.
Con episodes are just I think they're fun, because Con's so like over the top. But at the end of the day, they are a little bit sad because it is Con. Like, it's just sad thinking about why Con has to do all the things he has to do. Because again, like, he knows it's not like he has dementia or anything like that. Because he feels regret and he understands when he hurts people. He just can't help himself.
He knows what he's doing is wrong. He just doesn't care. Oh well. I guess he wound up winning in the end. So good for him, I guess. Yeah, that's all I've got on this episode. What about you?
Another just a fun watch. It's a classic old early season episode, so it was a good pick.
Yes, it was, and I think I guess the next one is kind of mid-series. The next one that we're going to be doing is Made in Ireland, which is a Bill-heavy episode and also involves the Super Newson phones. And this is actually a nice episode because of how it ends. And I'm not going to give away too much. You guys watch it and join us next time. But until then, I'm Jason,
and I'm Jimmy.
Bye.
Bye.